Hi, Dolores.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you being willing, for trusting me with anything that you are willing to share, and for allowing me to just ask you questions. So, why don't we get started? Super simple, okay? Why don't we talk about where you were born or where you grew up?
I was born in Carmel.
California.
But I don't really know much. I guess we lived in Monterey, and my mom and dad were still together, and then my dad split. I guess we were living in San Jose when I was like a year and a half maybe, and that's when my dad split. And I think it was like San Jose. Then we lived in Campbell, and that's when my mom met the person that she would have a relationship with until I was like 16 maybe. And we were very poor and he was not. And my mom just started moving. So we moved, I think it was not quite 4, or maybe I was 4, and we moved into his, like it was my mom and my sister and I in a tiny little apartment, right? And then we moved into his house in Los Gatos, and he had a lot of money. He still does. He's got like Hilton type money, like extremely, like not just, yeah. And so, yeah, so it was just, yeah. So I lived there, and then we moved to Los Altos. Then we moved to Palo Alto. Then we moved to Redwood City. Then we moved to Longmont, Colorado. Then we moved to Denver, Colorado. Then we moved to Stinson Beach in Marin County. Then we moved to Los Angeles. And then from Los Angeles, then we moved to another house in Los Angeles. And then my mom picked Redding, California, of all places, to settle. Ugh. And I moved there. I think I was going into the 8th grade. Yeah, 8th grade.
So you did all of those moves before 8th grade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people were like, oh, are you in the military? And I was like, nope. I have no idea. My mom was just, what I understand now as somebody in long-term recovery, how geographics work,
What do you mean?
Well, instead of confronting what is, you're constantly starting over, and it takes up a lot of mental energy, and, but as soon as that quits working, you have to move again.
Uh-huh.
And, the person she was in relationship with, he had a lot of money. So we just moved every year to a different house, to a different town.
Every year.
Mm-hmm. Michelle, we went to different school every year until we were, I guess call that junior high.
So,
or high school, 9th grade.
Looking back, did you ever get to a point, I imagine you got to a point, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, where it was just hard to get attached to anyone because you knew that at a certain point you were going to have to say goodbye again?
Well, I don't even think it was that conscious of a thought, It was just
how things were.
How things were, like, okay, I'm not going to get attached. Nobody wanted to attach to me,
Were you like letting them know that it was inevitable that you were going to move?
Oh, I don't know. I was so young, but I think the message was that it was kind of like I just never fucking knew what was going on. I was always trying to, I just never knew. You get to school, I never knew what was going on in class or who the kids were. Or, I was like, didn't do very well in school because having worked in schools now, I can see where nobody could follow through with me because I'd be off to another school.
Uh-huh.
And so you're always moving somewhere where everyone knows each other. Your clothes are different. You're trying to make friends with people, but kids are mean. So are adults, but still. And, you know,
Kids
my
are meaner.
sister was really angry. So it's not like I had an ally with her. You know what I mean? And I had a mom who was gone a lot. So nobody was talking through what was happening. There was no even explanation from her. Like, I know this is really hard to move a lot, but, you know, she probably didn't know why. So I was just kind of holding on for dear life, I think, is what was happening.
And playing catch up all the time.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that your mom was, you mentioned that you're in recovery, but was your mom an addict?
Well, I think my mom she always drank, but she was not a drug addict. You know, she came from Oklahoma with her parents, you know, during the Dust Bowl. Very grapes of wrath. But so she had a horrendous childhood. But she died an alcoholic. Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, she started to drink pretty heavily, like in high school.
Okay.
So she was definitely an alcoholic.
And self-medicating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't blame her for the reason I'm an alcoholic. It's not, you know, she didn't make me one. It's just you either are one or you're not one, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I can
Because some people drink and they're like, I'm not doing that, or they find something else, you know what I mean? And it was just, for me, alcohol was just always, yeah.
Well, I mean, I can only speak to my experience, and, you know, we're different people, but I can tell you that the behavior's absolutely modeled, for sure. You know, if you have a parent that never drinks and doesn't have a lot of resistance towards it, they just don't ever drink, then, you know, you have a different relationship to it than you would if your parents did. Or if, for instance, you're in a family like mine who, you know, my dad was a recovering alcoholic and my mom was consistently reminding all of us about how she saved him from it. So if it's demonized, then you're very curious about it, especially if it's taboo and you're not allowed to do it and no one's allowed to do it. And there's a lot of control around it, right? So like my relationship to alcohol is different than yours, right? It sounds like.
Yeah.
But certainly some people are more prone based on hereditary reasons as well as modeling, right?
Yeah.
Both of those, I think, have to.
Yeah. And I don't mean like, oh, you know, definitely modeled it, but she, you know, I don't go like, oh, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be one.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people that had their childhoods were okay, but it's like they started to drink and it just, a little switch gets flicked on.
Well, I think we all learn how to self-medicate.
Yeah.
Especially if we don't know how to process the trauma that we've experienced. And everyone is kind of on the rainbow of trauma, right?
The pain rainbow.
The pain rainbow. And like some of us have experienced a little and some of us have experienced a lot. And if we don't have a parent to walk us through that, then ultimately we're left on our own to figure it out. And sometimes we don't know how to self-regulate, especially if our parents didn't know how to self-regulate. So if they turn to alcohol to self-regulate, then we might turn to alcohol to self-regulate, right? And so we're just trying to regulate our nervous system and feel better and subdue the pain that we're in.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It was like, you know, I drank all through pretty much my life. You know, I started drinking when I was in high school, and like I was talking about today, I was like, oh, people were like studying to go to college. I was just bored. I didn't want to, you know, and then I moved to San Francisco at a very young age, and I just, it didn't matter. Like, it didn't matter what happened because I always knew that I could have oblivion.
in alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or drugs. I did a lot of drugs too. I mean, yes, I did. And, I was definitely a drug addict, but I didn't have like, oh, I'm a junkie, I'm a heroin addict, or, oh, I smoke meth. It was kind of like I would do drugs with, but, my drug of choice was always alcohol. And it was, it was always like, I always knew I could just, start. And it was never my intent. I mean, kind of in the end, definitely it was my intent to just get absolutely, I just wanted oblivion. But I was always like, well, I'll just have a couple, and it's always that thing where you think you're just going to have a couple. And yeah, cognitive dissonance, I think that's what they call that.
Yeah.
So anyways, sorry.
No, you're fine. I never got to oblivion,
Good.
but I can tell you that I used it. Well, it just wasn't that successful.
Yeah.
Oblivion? No, the pain was still there. It's just that it was highly numbed. And sometimes it made it worse. It made me super depressed. Yeah. So.
Well, it is a depressant.
Yeah. So it wasn't necessarily incredibly effective. But I thought it was.
Right.
And so, then looking back, I just realized like how many people had to take care of my pain because I wasn't taking care of my pain. I just made it everybody else's problem. Yeah. So there was that. And we just dove right in, as Scorpios will do. We skipped all of your childhood and just went straight to our drinking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't. That's the thing. Like as somebody who moved every single year of my life, that's all I can really tell you about my childhood.
Yeah.
When you move all the time, there's nothing attached to my memory about certain things.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
Because it was always changing.
Always changing. Always.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my mother's whim, and I had a sister who was always changing, but my sister handled it. She was very angry.
That's what you said.
So,
and she's younger than you?
No, I'm the youngest.
Okay.
So her way of dealing with stuff was just, anger.
Yeah. Well,
she was pretty mean. She was pretty mean to me.
Yeah.
We're close now, but it was, I didn't have any solace, So I spent a lot of time alone.
Me too.
Like a lot.
Me too. Yeah. Because I'm the baby. And
right.
And my two sisters are 5 and 6 years older. So there's no way they were hanging out with me.
Well, it's just easier.
It was easier. Yeah.
Me and my cats.
Yep.
I always had pets. Thank God we were allowed to have pets because I still have a cat today. Her
Me
name's
too.
Lala.
I have 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's my compadre.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, I can't really tell you a lot except for that.
Okay. Well, we'll get to that. So name something you can't live without.
Like material or spiritual?
Anything.
Or
doesn't matter.
Well, I don't.
Something.
I don't think I want. Books.
Books. Yeah.
Books. Coffee. My friends that I have today.
Yeah.
My bicycle.
Yeah. I heard that you clean off your shelves with a really expensive hairdryer. And I think that's a brilliant idea.
Who told you that? This is not me.
That wasn't you?
No, who told you that? Because I'm like,
I listened to that podcast and that's what they introduced. I thought it was you. Okay. That's all right.
I don't even own an expensive. I have a hairdryer, but it's not expensive.
Okay.
But it's not thorough. Like dust hangs on.
Yeah.
I use a duster.
Okay. Good to know.
Yes. So that's that. So those things, and coffee for sure. Coffee. I love coffee.
Tell me something unique or interesting about you that only those close to you would know.
Wow. Unique. That's I don't know if it's unique, but or that maybe I'm just trying to like.
What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, the friends of mine that are really, really close that I'm very I'm very childlike, and not as in like immature, but I really have this child's curiosity that I only think my friends that are really close to me know it, is because I'm fully who I am with those people, and it's not like I hide it from people, but not, those are the things they love about me,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that,
Are you silly?
like very,
Me
I'm
too.
being serious now because you're asking me serious questions. But am I silly? Extremely.
Me too.
Extremely. Most of the time, I'm not serious. So when I am, I'm really serious. But, I just have that, yeah. And that I view life, even when stuff's really hard and I cry, I still, like, love that part of myself. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, too, I think that makes maybe unique that people close to me only know, is that I love all those parts of myself.
Why do you love it? Because it's innocent?
It's innocent, but it's also that I'm not afraid to feel all the things I feel, and that I'm not afraid to, and I often do write about stuff or tell people like how much I love them, but not in a general way. Like I really can be specific about that. And I feel like I can be really specific with my friends, and like they, in a way that they can share and get as close to the experience that I have of them, that without being me, I guess. So I guess you could say that. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. What are you naturally gifted in?
I'd have to say languages. Yeah.
Do you speak multiple languages?
Well, yes, kind of.
Oh yeah, you speak German.
Mm-hmm. And I studied Russian in college, but I mean, I know a lot of words, and the thing I like about language is the structural, like, how it's structured and how it can be representative of, like, a language is really structured based on the value judgments and viewpoints and geography of the culture that is the language represents, So I think that I'm gifted in seeing the relationship between those things, I guess.
How did you learn German?
Well, it's funny because I was basically flunking out of high school, I think, like I told you. I have a diploma. I have literally no idea how I got it. But hey, there you go. Because I was taking French for a while, Well, I was actually gifted. I played violin. This one thing that was constant in my youth. I started playing when I was like 6. And
do you still play?
No. Mm-mm. I have one.
Do you know how?
Yeah.
I have one too.
It would take me a while to get back to it. But because
you could figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's, violin's hard to make sound nice.
I know.
Sorry to all those other instruments out there, but
it's
hard.
True. It's very difficult.
Like I guess I'm good at music. Like I'm good at, not all music. I'm not interested in all music, but I think that I understand how music goes together. I read notes. So I think that those kind of things, I think the thing I'm good, like naturally good at, is the relationship between how things work and cognitively the relationship between something abstract that you can't see and how it sort of fits into, because my thoughts, you can't see my thoughts, right? You can't see music, but I can understand how
things relate.
Yeah, to that. But I mean, I played for a long time, and, I was first chair in junior high. Well, the one school I went to in junior high. And I had a teacher. I went all the time, and I was just about to join the LA Junior Symphony, and then my mom fucking moved us to Reading. It was really hard.
I'm sure it was. It was devastating.
Because I was like the one thing I had that I was good at, so it's all right. I learned to, I got, and I rode motorcycles from a young age. So, I was good at that, riding motorcycles.
But how did you learn German?
So anyways, my senior year of high school, I took German because I had been taking French, and I was like, oh, German. And I'd always been interested in Russian, right? Like the Iron Curtain and like oppression and like how do those people, like I was always interested in like how people survive under.
Did you know
oppression.
I was Russian?
Mm-mm.
I don't know how to speak it.
But
my dad is Russian and Czech.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And my great grandfather escaped. He was the chef for Tsar Nicholas
II.
And when they were all being murdered, he came to LA and opened a restaurant in Hollywood.
That was it was probably before 1914, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, last of the Romanovs. So I mean, in Russian history, I love Russian history. So yeah, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna take German, and it was like I was really good at it. It was like the one thing I was, like I got an A in it. So I felt like it did a lot. It did a lot of.
And you still remember it?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why I remember it. So then when I moved to San Francisco, all the things that I supposedly got my diploma for, I just relearned at San Francisco City College, and I continued to take German. And then I was like, and I lived in Germany for like half a year, I worked in a hotel as a Zimmermädchen. And then I came back and I saw that Russian was taught at San Francisco City College. And man, I was on that. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to learn Russian. And yeah, so I ended up, studying Russian for a while. But it's really hard to stick with it when you're doing a lot of drugs, drinking. But anyways, I did end up.
I didn't mean to laugh at you.
But, well, I mean, it's funny because I sponsor women in AA that one in particular, like, when I met her, she was doing her PhD in Zurich, got her PhD and like wrote a poem, and it was like sent it to the Sorbonne, and she won, and they like flew her to read the poem. And I'm like, why couldn't I be that kind of alcoholic? Why did I have to be the other kind? But whatever.
What's the other kind?
Where she's so accomplished, you know what I mean? Like she did all those things. Because I had this like dream that I would go to the Monterey Institute of Foreign Language and become a translator.
That was your dream?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's okay. I'm not like bummed out that it didn't happen. I mean, kind of, but not really. I mean, even though I've had all this trauma and the horrible like pain in my life, I think who I am today because of it is okay, and I touch lives because of it, especially because being in AA, I just want to make sure everyone knows that they're okay just the way they are. You know what I mean? That everybody is worthy.
Mm-hmm. I did not know you were a sponsor in AA.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I've sponsored lots of women. So anyways, yeah, so that's how I learned German. And then I was studying Russian. And then I met a German guy in San Francisco on this motorcycle ride down to Santa Cruz. And he was German. So then I was just around German, right?
So you got to practice.
Got to practice and was just around it. And then I moved to Zurich in 2015. And, I just remembered it. I don't know. That's why I said I'm good at languages.
Yeah.
So after living there, I just spoke German, even though Swiss German's much different, but still.
Yeah.
Printed German, it's all in the standardized German. So I just, it was funny too, because I sponsored this woman, Esther, who I'm still friends with. They came to visit me here. And she's Hungarian. And so I met her in a meeting. We went through the steps. Like, she had a Hungarian, AA Big Book, and she would write her steps out in Hungarian, and we would go over them in German. So I really feel like I learned so many different words that I would have not learned, and that and it got to the point.
It helps you with other languages too.
Yeah. And I just started speaking in, like, there were days where I just was only speaking German. It just was easy for me. Like, I can still hook into it. And, if I think about Russian as well, I know a lot of words in Russian, but I don't really get a lot of
practice with it.
No, but I feel like there's a large Russian community here that, where I work, we have this, Latinx program where they're looking for Spanish speakers. And I thought maybe there would be something like that where peers could reach or get resources to maybe the Russian community as well. So, So anyways, yeah, that's how I know German.
Okay. What do you love doing more than anything else?
Gosh, I can't just pick one thing though. It wouldn't be like,
okay.
It would depend on the day, because if I do one thing I love to do is I love to ride my bike. I love to ride my bike around. There's just like this freedom in riding my bike. I'm not like a cyclist where I go. I mean, I can ride pretty far, but I'm not like a cyclist that's out on, I mean, it feels good, but I just love riding around. There's like this freedom. Like, I'm just like outside of like any I'm here and there, and it's just me. And I love doing that. And I guess, God, I like going, like, adventuring on, I don't know. Yeah, that's a hard one. It's really hard for me to just be like, it's this one thing.
Okay.
Because okay. Life is made up of so many different things. But I guess if I had to, like, whatever I'm doing, that I'm with my best friends.
What makes you the happiest?
I think the happiest I am is when I know I'm doing the right thing for myself. Whatever that is. Usually it's, when I'm acting with integrity, even not in having it not have to do with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's financial or like setting boundaries or, and I know when I'm doing that, it's like I feel a sense of freedom, like I'm able to, there's nothing to like navigate. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the thing that makes me the happiest, because then it makes my life bigger, and it allows me to to add more things into my life, instead of this constant, like, just like, ugh, when you're in that shit, which happens a lot, and the relationships and the lifestyles that I've chosen, I feel like I'm constantly digging out of something, and it feels really good to not be digging out of something and just, you're finally out of the hole, and you're like, oh, what's around here? What's going on? So I think I've spent a lot of years in that catastrophe, or, also definitely not just in my mind, but, very bad, scary situations that survival. That's the word I'm looking for. I've lived in survival mode for, I'd have to say, pretty much my entire life. And when I'm not in survival mode, I don't want to just say like the opposite of something is when I'm the happiest, but when I can feel that I'm not in survival mode, I feel like I can breathe. And that's where I'm like, just all right.
What did you love doing as a child?
There were like, well, riding my bicycle.
Mm-hmm.
I just was one of those kids that loved to ride her bike.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah. And play with we always had dogs, and one of my favorite things was I'd have like dog circus in the backyard. You know what I mean? Like,
I do know, because it did the same thing.
Well, because they were just so happy to
do whatever you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how dogs are.
I mean, I think there were other things I wanted to do, but it was like, they just weren't possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Because my mom whatever my mom was doing she took us on some weird rides.
Mm-hmm. So you had dog circus in the backyard for entertainment.
Yeah. And I used to do this really fucked up thing too. I wouldn't say I liked it, but I did it. I would like have these watercolors. Like I can't draw or paint. Like I just don't have I'm not really interested in it either. So that could be why. But I would paint these pictures, and I would save them for my mom. And if my mom could tell what they were, I would know that she loved me. You know what I mean?
Because she's paying attention to you.
Yeah. And it was like, I remember doing that, like that thought just came to my mind, kind of like, does she, like, maybe she's just always doing this other thing, and really what she wants to do is, and I don't think she wanted to ignore us. I just don't think she had it in her to, like, I think her boyfriend always came first. Always. You know what I mean? I don't think she had a lot of, and seeing how those kind of relationships are all consuming, I can see now, Have you ever heard of this book called Bastard Out of Carolina?
No.
Yeah. They made a movie out of it. It's brutal, but I remember thinking like, oh yeah, that's when you forfeit your children, for your relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 Well, that's what she knew.
Yeah.
That's probably how her parents were with her as well.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. It's generally,
but as a kid, you internalize it.
Oh, for sure. But we just, as parents, repeat stuff that we were taught unless we're completely awake and cognizant of what that's doing and the fact that we, are passing it along.
Right. And that's why I never wanted to have a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I was also like, I can't. I just was like, I have no idea what I would do if I had a kid. Like, I couldn't imagine being committed to anything like that. Huh. And it is a commitment, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You are fully in. You cannot be, but you're not going to be terrific at it, and your child's going to suffer.
Sure.
But once you're in, you're in for the whole ride. You can't really forfeit it. You can give your child up, I guess, for adoption or have them taken away. But it's a dedication, and you give up a lot of things in order for them to have what it is that they need, for sure. Mm-hmm. And my experience was different because my family was so abusive, and I understood. I told my mom at 12 that I was going to write a book about how not to be a parent, and I was going to be a better parent than her. So yes. Yeah. Yeah. I still didn't get it all right.
Yeah, but that's life.
Right. But yes, in my opinion. Well, yeah. And, again, it's just my opinion. But I've also been told. But, I also don't have any personality disorders. So for me,
Right. You're more conscious about what's coming out of your mouth.
And my actions.
Sure.
So for me, I had a better advantage, you could say, in being a better parent to my daughter, in my opinion. Yeah. So I was better equipped. Yeah. To do the job. But, okay. What was it like to grow up in your family? Tell me about it.
I mean,
sounds like you were alone.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really, I mean, it just, my family consisted of like my sister and me and my mom, who was gone pretty much all the time. And then I guess we had some housekeepers, I guess. We did have housekeepers. And then we had my Aunt Sandy, who was really, my mom was closer to my Aunt Sandy.
It is so weird. You and I have so many similarities. I have an Aunt Sandy as
well. Well, my Aunt Sandy died in 1994.
Mine's still alive.
Well, I think that's when my mom sort of really tipped the scales into alcoholism. But, I think my mom was always waiting for somebody to save her, and yeah. So when I look back at it, I mean, we would go spend time in Reading with my Aunt Sandy, and she had 2 kids, Kim and Leslie, but I didn't like Kim and Leslie. And they were very mean to me. Mm-hmm. They were all very mean to me. Mm-hmm. And I didn't, I always felt this fear of them with good reason. Mm-hmm. Especially Kim. She was sadistic, like really sadistic. Mm-hmm. But so it was just growing up in my family, I was just trying to like
survive.
Yeah. Stay out of the way. Mm-hmm. I thought like, if I didn't cause too much trouble, maybe we won't move. Or something, but it's, like as a kid, you think like, this is happening because of me.
Yep.
And if nobody's telling you any different, like
you don't know.
You don't know. Mm-hmm. So thinking, I mean, I can see how later I got into abusive relationships because I felt like I could control them if I could, with how I was or how I acted or how I looked or what I did or what I didn't do or what I didn't say or, doing what they said or, all those things, which ended up,
because you were taught to be a pleaser.
Or just taught to just, like.
Erase yourself and be what other people needed. Yeah.
To have no needs of your own. Like,
yes.
It was funny too, because when I got sober in 2009, I was still married to the worst abuser I ever had. And I actually thought that people that were happy had no needs. And that was my problem, that I had needs.
That you were too needy.
Or just that I had them at all.
Right.
Well, it seemed like everyone moved around the world like so freely, like that things didn't affect them, because, this is and of course this is the story I had. And I remember thinking like, okay, finally I'm going to get to a place where I might have no needs and I'm going to find happiness, I found out that that's not how it works, but I mean, that's how fucked up I was.
Oh, you weren't fucked up.
Well, I mean, I had not like that in a bad way, but like that's how askew I was. Well,
it was just it was normalized. It was just what your experience was.
And when people were like, finally people, because I had, one of the things I loved about being in AA was people knew who I was. They remembered my name and they liked me anyways. And, I worked the 12 steps of AA many times, and I got closer to people and I learned how to have reciprocal friendships. And I realized that I did need people and that those were normal things. And that as scary as needing people and being with people, it was also like wonderful and exciting and like all those really good things. You know, the best experiences I've had are with people, like feeling my love grow, you know. So
and
I just
being
didn't.
vulnerable.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I couldn't even say that word. Like when I first started seeing my therapist in 2000, I think it was 2016, you know. I was just like, I would be like, ugh, don't make me say that word. So anyways, okay. That's what it was like. It was like
okay.
being a child of my mother.
What do your friends most appreciate about you?
Depends on which friend. I mean, they all appreciate my sense of humor. And that I'd have to say that I am loyal, but not in a way like, oh, through thick and thin, but yeah, through thick and thin, like what does it really mean to absolutely love somebody? You know, there's no like, well, what am I getting? You know, like I think that I am with them no matter what, you know.
So you love them unconditionally.
Completely.
Did you learn that from your mom?
Absolutely not.
Where do you think you learned that?
I think I knew it existed. I think I had heard rumor of it in folklore. You know, I mean, I saw it. I witnessed it. I witnessed people doing it with each other, you know, like having this, and I mean, I always had this barrier, like, well, I'll never have that because I'm defective. You know, like, why would anybody want to have that with me? Like, I couldn't, you know, and not in a self-pity kind of way either, just in a, like, I had no idea, like, what do I have to offer? You know, if I'm not offering you sex, like, what do I have to offer? You know, it's one thing my mom taught me. But I also think that, like my friend Becca, she's always like, you're the smartest person I know. And she loves that one of the things she loves about me is that I believe in love and I don't give up, and that I always have this curiosity about the world, you know, and no matter how hammered down I've been, I always have this, you know, joie de vivre, and that, and she just appreciates how I see the world differently, and she always wants to know what I think. And then if you were to ask Erica, I think she would just say how I feel about her, just that she's just my favorite human, you know, and that, I don't know, like I just, like with her, especially with Erica, like I've just never loved somebody as much as I love her. That she
makes you feel safe.
Yeah, but just like this, there's nothing about her that I like. I would just do anything for her. Without question. And we've been through a lot of ups and downs, you know, with each other. And she would always be the first person I go to, you know, and I never had one of those before. So I think what my friends like about me is that I'm always there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What qualities do you most admire in a woman?
I think probably that, when people are honest about how, just openness, being open about the struggle of what it's like to be a woman, like trying to, like how, like, I think the things I most admire in women that I've been close to, or people that I see, or women that like I like, and people, maybe even women that I don't know, is that they like don't give a fuck, and that I see them defining themselves based on who they are, and sort of moving away from this model of like these expectations of that what we are supposed to be, and that like that women come into their power and they're not looking to a man to be like, is this okay if I do this? Or, like that don't dumb down, that just are unapologetically powerful and smart and intelligent and just like fucking go for it, and that like, but that aren't angry towards men. You know how you have those, I know a lot of women that are just like, fuck men. And it's like, most men are as ignorant about women as women are about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So
even I would go as far as to say they're even ignorant about themselves.
Yeah. Yes, totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just to watch a woman like, and that's one thing I love about being a sponsor, to watch somebody just be like, oh, I can do this. I can do this thing called life, and I don't need anybody's approval. But not in a fuck you kind of way, but just like
an empowered way.
Yeah, empowerment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about in a man? What are some qualities that you appreciate in a man?
I think, God, it's probably, I mean, God, Andrea,
it's all right. If you can't think of anything.
No, I mean, I think about men that I'm close to in my life. Not a lot, it's hard to get close to men without them thinking something. But like I have a really good guy friend, Patrick, who he's like me, but he's a dude. And I like men. I like male energy. I like that men are producers. Like, I think there's some qualities in men. I feel like it's okay to be protective, not like overbearing and controlling, but protective. Like you would protect. But I think like my female energy and a male energy go, because I've had relationships with women, and I just think energetically for me, I like that in men. I like their strength and their protectiveness. I mean, I've never had a successful relationship because usually I get with very aggressive, I mean, I guess, yeah, I like that. I like a man who is like strong and protective and assertive, but not assertive, but just like manly, but also is just who they are too, without all the other stuff. But I guess qualities in a man, I mean, it would be the same that I would want in a woman, but I guess qualities in a man are, but it's hard to find. I don't know if maybe you can speak to this, and I'm sure it's not the first time people have talked about it, but it's hard as like I'm coming into my empowerment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like literally as we speak, in this time of my life, I finally feel like my capacity is growing, and not just my capacity to just own who I am unapologetically. But I am a presence. Like I know I have a very strong presence of who I am, and that I'm very quick-witted, and, like what I think about it, like to meet a man that can like like hang with that. And not, because not like, I'm not even like, I'm not like blowing myself up in that way, but I just know energetically my mind moves really fast. I've read a lot of books. I've done a lot of things. I see how things, and sometimes it's intimidating to men or threatening, and then I'm like, oh, they're getting, and it's not even like words. It's like this thing I feel, or maybe it's just what I'm thinking, because I make up stories in my mind and act in accordance with those stories. But it could be, then I'm like, oh, bring it down or dumb down or like, yeah. So that's my challenge. But I would like a man who, like I think about Patrick, like, but we're just friends. We're just meant to be friends. And I introduced him to my best friend, Becca, and they're in love and they live together now. They'll probably get married and stay together forever. So when I go over there, I get both of them. So it makes me happy. Okay. I give very long answers.
It's okay.
I tell people too, if you ask me a question, you got to be prepared that I'm going to give you a full length answer.
That's okay. I'm here for it.
You can handle it.
I can handle it.
I know you can.
If you could change one thing about your relationship with your mom, what would it be?
God. I think that, you mean as an adult?
Mm-hmm.
I probably would have been more honest with her and less reactionary. I didn't give her a chance to. I didn't let her in, But I mean, I never felt safe. Did not feel safe, because I was like, and this is an example. So it's just like so many things had happened. And like, I think it was in 2004, not 2004, 2014, I think. I remember because I was raped when I was in 10th grade at a party. And my mom was out of town. And I somehow internalized it and that it was my fault, And so it's basically Home Alone, right? I mean, I feel like there was a shift in me definitely after that happened. And we're having a conversation. We used to talk on the phone, but I'd have to call her really early because she'd start drinking and it just, became troublesome.
Yes.
Especially being a sober person. And I remember her asking me like, should I have called the police? Did I do enough? And I was just like, there were times where I was just like, this person is never going to be my mother. Like, yeah, of course you should have. Like, I look at people and I think like, the fuck were you thinking? So it was like, why didn't I just say that? Like, why didn't I just tell her the truth?
Because you didn't want to hurt her.
Yeah. But, times where I could have been like, yeah, I wish you would have. And like, explained to her, but it was really hard to talk to her. I think if I could change something that she would be less defensive and we could just have a conversation because everything was always like,
Well, you weren't taught to relate. She was always gone. You almost didn't have a relationship.
Yeah, basically.
Mm-hmm. So in a lot of ways, she expected you to be the parent.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because she's deferring to you on how to raise you or parent you.
What should I have done? I'm like, oh, God.
Yeah. You were just dealing with her inner child.
Yeah. So I think if I could have changed that, But I'll tell you, I did the right thing by her in the end. I did take care of her in the end. I mean, when I moved back, I lived in Switzerland, and when I moved back, my brother-in-law Randy. I mean, my sister, anyways, yeah.
My cousin's name was Randy.
Well, she started to she was late stage alcoholic, and she kind of was not functioning so great. And because she was expecting everybody to take care of her, right? Because she had lived like that her whole life. And she got drunk and fell down her stairs. And she was like, I was carrying, just all the things that you think people aren't watching you when you drink. And she kind of went downhill after she hit her head, and then
that's usually what happens.
Right. And then Randy's like, you have to move to Reading and take care of your mom. And I was just like, fuck, no, I'm not doing that. And then I had this great therapist, and she's like, you're going to have to figure it out because it's going to fall on you. And as much as I didn't want to help her, like, why should I help you? I did what it took. I figured it all out. I took over her finances, and I figured out how to lower her income, which is crazy because it was already so low. And I got her in-home care through Medi-Cal, from not Medi-Cal federal, but the California Medi-Cal, and found this caregiver, this woman who loved my mom. And my mom had moved in. I mean, my mom was so out of it, like when because Randy used to see her all the time. She didn't even know that Randy had died. That's how out of it she was. But she died, and this woman had moved her in, was in the midst of moving her in. And, she died in this woman's house. She died in a house with somebody that took care of her and loved her. And it was kind of like when she called me and told me that she had died, I didn't have any regrets. I wasn't just like, fuck you, I don't care what happens to you. Of course, I had help and encouragement from other people. I don't think that's something I would have done on my own. But the fact that I listened and trusted somebody else who was saying, look, you have to do this because it's going to fall on you anyways. So why don't we do it the right way, deliberately, and figure out what, you know what I mean? Instead of making these fast decisions. So how, I was telling you how sometimes I feel the best when I know I'm doing the right thing. And it wasn't like, oh, see what I did. It wasn't even like that.
No, you were in alignment.
Yeah. And no matter what, I didn't want her to die alone. I didn't want her to be alone, no matter what, Mm-hmm. I didn't want to be the person around her because she was in her later, I mean, she's just really mean. Mm-hmm. Very mean. Said very mean things. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I promise to stay on topic.
You're fine. Let's see. Let's skip some of these questions. Mm-mm. Okay. So we talked about this a little bit before we got started, and we haven't even touched on it. So I am going to shift your childhood into your adulthood. Yeah, of course. So you... in 2000, you met someone that was pretty significant in the trajectory of your life. You've touched a little bit on some relationships that you've had since, and that one as well. But this one was pretty significant. So do you mind letting us know what happened? You had met him earlier in your life, but he resurfaced. Yeah.
I mean, the only reason I say I'd met him earlier was the only reason that I was at this flat track race in Sacramento and that I recognized him, besides the fact that he's...
And you ran into him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was easy. He's extremely tall. And I remember I was like, oh, you. And he was like, oh, you. And I don't know, we just talked for a minute, and and then he gave me his card, and I had a pretty bad breakup with somebody. Not a bad breakup, but very painful one. The one guy who I feel like is the only person I've ever truly been in love with. But I hope I am again one day soon. No, I'm just kidding. Whenever, universe. And so it was just, I was living in I lived in Sacramento for 1 year before I moved back to San Francisco. So I'd lived in Minneapolis for a couple of years, maybe a year and a half with this person. And I remember feeling just like, what am I doing? I'm in Sacramento. I was a waitress, fucking drinking so much. But I lived on my own. Oh my God, I remember I paid for this apartment $400 a month. I've had this apartment. Can you imagine paying $400 for anything? And anyway, so I was just kind of like, I always tell people I'm like a tumbleweed, just tumbleweed. That's how I feel about my life. Just a tumbleweed. And, my tumbleweed kind of got stuck on his fence. And he said, hey, next time you're in San Francisco, look me up. And so I called him and I was like, hey, I'm coming to San Francisco. And I remember him being a sober person or not drinking or something. Like, I did not grok sobriety at this point. I was starting to, drink a lot. And he was like, oh, no, I'm not sober anymore. Because I was like, hey, we could meet for have a coffee or something. And so we did not. And then we went to this bar somewhere. God, I don't even remember. Somewhere on like 16th and Mission or whatever. I was like, oh, okay, this guy drinks. And there's a reason why he was sober. And that's how I met him. And it was just like, the most fucked up thing, because I remember thinking how I just was immediately like shifted realities with this guy and his Jedi mind tricks. And I saw him that one time, and then he came to see me a couple of times, and this really fucked up thing happened, and that's where things really started. Then I just really lost my tether to reality, because anybody would have like ran the other direction. And I was like, sign me up.
So what made you feel, or when you look back, do you feel like at that time in your life you were naive and insecure and emotionally vulnerable? And
For sure.
And that's why?
Mm-hmm. And I was just looking for somewhere to belong, like my whole life, I never had that sense of like, no matter what happens, I have this thing, this is what I belong to. I can go back there. Like, I was just like, I was 38. I thought my life was over. And I was like, I gotta like, and here, he's like making me all these offers,
Like
he was telling me things about all the things about being a woman, like that guys are always, women are better than men. And like, I just want to serve you. I want to like serve, I just want to like take care of you, and I want to serve you and do the, all these things that he was promising that he was going to
do for you.
Yeah, basically like wait on me hand and foot and make my life, so much better. And, and it was just all fucking bullshit. It's all like stuff that he was regurgitating that he had learned from a commune that he had lived in, that he was married to somebody when they moved in to this commune. And she stayed and he got kicked out, and they got divorced, and she like had the leader's baby. When I look back on it, I'm just like, what? Yeah. So what I thought was him, like, that he cared about me. And we also had this motorcycle connection, right? So we did a lot of off-road motorcycle riding. So it was just like, just the dichotomy of all these things, but that he was just trying to find his way back into this commune is really what he was doing.
You didn't know that.
Of course I didn't.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I mean, immediately there was a red flag.
What was it?
But because I didn't know what love bombing was, but, so I was still living in Sacramento, and he would come up on the train and he would see me. And then one weekend I didn't hear from him. I mean, we'd only been dating like maybe a month or a month and a half. And I didn't hear from him. And I was like, oh, this is weird, And he called me. Then he called my phone. This is pre-cell phones. He called me from the airport here in Portland to tell me that he had answered a, ad on Craigslist. Some woman flew him up to Portland and they fucked all weekend. And, but that through all of it, he had realized that I was the one. And that's all I heard. Like, oh,
that you were chosen.
That he chose me.
Yeah.
Not like any of the other fucked up weird stuff. Like, oh, I just spent, 2 days fucking this woman that I'm like, whatever. Yeah. And I was just like, okay, he chose me.
Well, you wanted to be chosen because you had this huge hole in your life where a dad might have been. I mean, as a female, that's how we learn all of the self-care, self-love, self-respect. We learn all of the selves from
physical boundaries. I just had none, and it was like here, I'm going to lay this, feast. And then, yeah. And then just the whole, just like the whole thing about him was, yeah. And then I was like, okay, and then I moved shortly after that, moved to San Francisco, and we moved into an apartment. We lived where did we live? Between 18th and 19th on Mission Street.
Okay. And he moved in with you, right? Because he was living.
He was sleeping on the shop floor. He's a machinist, so he's living on the shop floor when I met him. Yeah. Real catch. And then when we moved into this apartment together, I didn't live there. I was living in Sacramento.
Okay.
So we found this apartment and moved in. I moved there. We moved in together.
Okay.
Shit went sideways real quick.
Yeah.
Oh, but the thing he told me, which you probably heard in my podcast, the thing he told me though, before I moved in with him, and this was in May of 2021, 2001, was that if we were going to live together, that I had to take a course with this
commune.
I don't really want to say their name.
That's fine.
And so that
you got completely pulled in.
Oh yeah. He's like, if you want to move, so he was already like, well, if you want this, you have to do this thing because I want us to be, speaking from the same level.
Yeah.
So
you want us to be communicating.
Yeah.
Yeah. The same language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because he's enlightened and I am not.
Right.
So I did that. I came down and took the course.
Okay. And that's how you got involved in a sex commune.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, immediately.
And was it located in San Francisco or Sacramento?
No, it was in San Francisco. I was just living in Sacramento.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, they had a couple of houses. They have one, my friend, somebody that I met there that I'm still friends with, she was indoctrinated as a teenager. But anyways, she has systematically pretty much shut them down.
So how long were you involved with this sex commune?
Well, basically May 2001 until August. My timelines aren't real great, but 2008, maybe 2007.
So you lived there that whole time?
No, I did not live there that whole time. They had a couple of different houses. They had a house in San Francisco and they had a house in far northern California. Very far, sort of by Wairika.
Okay. You noticed you're getting tired.
No. And yeah, so I lived in the house with in the house in San Francisco, but I did go up. They called it the ranch. I went up to the ranch a lot for courses.
Okay.
And the longer I was in there, the more I'd have to go to courses and I'd have to like act a certain way in the courses and all this stuff.
And,
Anyways.
and be a part of the entire indoctrinating other people who would go to these courses.
Yeah.
Pretend like you were in the courses with them, but also at the same time, you were behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. You know, and then they would be like, you know, and if I wasn't turned on enough or whatever, you know, they'd be like, you got it. You know, your people are looking to you for how this, it's just, and the whole time it's just like, I'm dealing with this person. Yeah, it was just.
You're dealing with somebody who was, one, emotionally manipulating you to get what they wanted out of that scenario. 2, also recruiting, it sounds like, behind your back. And 3, never really super loyal to you.
Well, he would get really fucking jealous. You know what I mean? Like the closer I got to them, you know, that's where he wanted to be. And like, he would get mad, you know what I mean? And I was never the right way. It was
a double bind. You couldn't win because he wanted you to go and you were trying to do what he wanted, but then you were wrong for doing what he wanted because then you got what he wanted, which was to be in the limelight or to be accepted by group of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you couldn't win. You were set up for failure from the beginning. You just didn't know. So,
or like we took hundreds of courses together, and if I didn't act the right way in the course, or I didn't say the right thing in the course, or I didn't, and then he would always just like be fucking mad at me about that.
Yeah.
And he was violent
and punishing.
He was violent.
Yeah. I know he was. So how did you leave? How did you leave the commune and how did you leave him?
Well, I remember, so like it's like I remember the day I decided to get sober. Like for some reason, the clarity of that moment. And I remember that, I mean, basically the whole time I lived with them and with Bill and everything about Bill, because he was, you know, he tortured me. He would punch me. There's so many things, choke me. I mean, I just never, if I said something the wrong way, you know, and I mean, I suffered some serious physical abuse from him, you know, and I just remember like the whole time though, you know, I was just like, talk about alternate reality. I knew I was like, every cell in my body was like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like the entire time. And I was always like, never, you know, and I remember there's levels of jealousy, and I know you can understand this. And I never wanted him to fuck anybody but me. And so I had opportunity to fuck other guys in the commune, but I wouldn't do it because if I fucked them, that meant he could fuck somebody else. But he was always, it was like I couldn't go anywhere with him after a while. He was just, it was so gross. He's one of those super creepy, sleazy guys. You bring him around your friends and it was just, even my mom, when my mom
always
met him.
Checking everybody out.
Oh, yeah. And telling me how this person got his cock hard. And he had these rape fantasies. And he would tell me about how he wanted to rape my friend. I mean, it was like, anyways. And so we were up at the ranch, you know, and I was already kind of like just, we were up there. We were taking this 2-week course. It was like this advanced course called Confirmation 2. And we couldn't drink. That was one of the stipulations. And it was to take drink away from an alcoholic whose only fucking solution to surviving is to have a drink. It was like we were just like, I mean, it was bad. And so this woman, we're in the kitchen doing something, and it's a huge piece of property, and this other woman was like offered to suck his cock, and he was like, okay. And I was just like, I can't live here anymore. I'm like, what am I doing? And it wasn't in that moment that I did it, but it was later that night, because we had lived in this house in San Francisco, and this woman lived down there too, and I wanted to kill her at all times. Not even for that, but just because I didn't like her. But we were downstairs because everyone, there was like stratification, right? There were like the leaders, these 7 people, 1 guy and 6 women. And then there was everybody else, and everybody else slept in one giant room, like a bunch of beds. And we're down there and we're on the computer with one of the persons, because they filmed everything. And he was looking up at this picture because the woman he had been married to, she was a really good photographer. And I remember him telling this guy, yeah, we got to get some more art in the house down in San Francisco. And it just was like, I'm not investing one more thing. Like I'm not digging into this. And it was just in that moment I said, you can. I said, I'm moving out. And it was just in that moment. However, did he stay? No, because he's a fucking parasite and he cannot like survive without a host. And I was his host. Let's just put it that way.
So he was done as soon as you were done.
He didn't want to be, but he knew that he was no good to them without me. That's how that works. Yeah. So that's when I moved out. I didn't totally disengage from them because they have these things called benchmarks, where that's where you get, they call them marks. That's where you get marks, and you pay these like you play like these 4 very low level communication games, and that's how you get people interested and try and sell them courses and all this stuff. So I was still around. I still did courses, and I still we had benchmarks at our houses and we would lead benchmarks. So I wasn't totally disengaged from them, but I was not living with them. I was not under their lock and key, and it was because the guy who led the commune, when he was in a good mood, but if you got on his radar, I mean, it was not good. He would ream you. And it was like nobody could say anything, nobody would say, yeah. So it was like just to be away from that. Even Bill and his abuse was easier than that. And then that was in 2008. And then we moved to this house in South San Francisco. And I just decided, I was like, I think I'm going to be done. And I had hurt my back really badly. Like I had herniated a disc. I couldn't walk barely. And he would just like step over me. I mean, he was just, God, when I think back, I'm like, ugh. But I'd had this back surgery. And it was a month after that I decided to get sober. And it was in that year. First year I was sober, I lived with him. Just because my sponsor was like, don't make any sudden moves in the first year.
Wow.
Don't ever, like in a situation like that, never listen to your sponsor if they're telling you. And I just had decided like I was done. He couldn't hurt me anymore. Like I just was like, you'll never touch me. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. Like, yeah. And I just moved out June 4th of 2010, moved away. Yeah. Got my own apartment, had a job. I worked at San Francisco Unified, and yeah, I mean, I'd like to say like everything was easy after that. It was not. It was, because it was a year, it was a lifetime of neglect. And when you're in catastrophe living, I never learned like daily life functions.
No.
Literally.
Because you were in survival mode.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided, that's when I left him, was a year after. I had a year of sobriety, and yeah, I finally got away from him. Yeah.
Wow. What are you still working on healing?
So I still live in a lot of neglect. Not like I did, but when I first started going to this Jungian therapist, she was like, and it really works for me because we use a lot of like examples and analogies, and those somehow I can get it. So she's like, if your mom's a pie, like what percentage of this pie was your mother a nurturing mother? And I'd be like 20%, and she'd be like, I think you're being generous. She's like, I'm going to give your mom 2%. Because I was like, how am I like my mom?
That's the number that came to me.
But I was like, because I remember going like, how am I like my, how can I be, how does my mom live in me? Why am I, and she was like, that's how it is, because that's the percentage that you're able to take care of yourself. You have 2% in you that like, and she's like, you've had a lot of good fits and starts and all of your intentions have been right, but you didn't know how to, when you don't know how to not be neglectful, like how to live in this other way. So I think my challenge, not my challenge, but as I grow professionally, like, not that I'm a professional, but like in my job and how I take care of my body or in relationships, like how do I, not just towards myself, but how do I engage in my everyday life? How do I show up to work and I'm engaged in what I'm doing? Like really engaged, and I'm engaged in my friendships and in how I care for my body, because like I'm a 2-time cancer survivor, besides a lot of, I've had a lot of physical abuse from other people. And so like, I'm just starting to be able to like stop and be like, what do you need? Sometimes it's like when I can't, and one of the things I do, like I think of myself in the third person because it allows me to feel less self-indulgent when I'm doing it. And that's just how it works for me. Not like, oh, one day I will unify and speak of myself in the first person. It's not like that. It's a way to
feel less selfish.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to like because it's one of the ways I learned, like when I was in Zurich, I started my own pet sitting business and I built a website and I like did all this stuff and I like met so many people. Like I met so many, like I still talk to 2 of my clients. I'm going to visit them when I go back. And I learned how to care for myself through caring for animals. And I can use
what
those,
children do too, by the way.
Yeah. So I can use those like how much I love my cat and she's set up and I make sure she's got fresh things and I like just all the, and it's like I've learned now like how to treat myself that way, but it's definitely something that I have to choose over and over and over again. So those are the parts where I feel like I'm growing and just to be who I am in all situations. I mean, of course, I don't mean like be somebody else when I'm at work, but really like in my interactions with people.
And do you feel like maybe you learned unconditional love from the animals that you were around?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Just that.
They always are there for you.
Or just like, it's just enough to be like, with animal, they're like, it's just enough to be around you.
Yep.
You don't have to do anything extra special.
You
don't have to do anything over the top. You don't have to be like, this was really great. So next time you have to outdo yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There's no like, I am like I don't have to outdo myself.
Yep.
And so.
They accept you as you are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And those are the kind of friendships that I have today too. So my friends love me and they tell me the truth and they're like, hey, you don't have to do anything. You absolutely do not have to. They just remind me all the time. I'm like, I need reminders. And they're like, okay, I'm going to remind you.
That you don't need to do anything other than be you.
Yep.
What's one big decision you have made in your life that has had the most significant impact?
God, these are really hard questions. I guess I would say the one, like when I started seeing my therapist in Zurich, that I I was really like, I was 100% invested in myself and learning how to just that I could have a simple good life, and that that I could learn how to be okay with who I am, and that to seemingly see how other people lived, but like really was ready to learn how to navigate life instead of having to change things all the time. Learn how to navigate around those things that are just life, right? I always say life is lifey. And I really, it's changed everything about me since. It's changed, being sick or having people die or breaking up in relationships or aging, and like that is just all part of it. Like to accept that these are all the parts of life, and that I don't have to, I guess one of the biggest things is that I don't have to go to these extreme depths it's one of the things that's helped. I don't live in these huge up and downs. And that if something goes down or something bad happens, it's not a telltale sign that this is the way life is, and I've done something wrong. It doesn't, that I live more on a sort of a wavy continuum. And I think that the fact that one day I was like, because I remember meeting her, and from the very first session I had with her, it was like she started changing things for me. But I remember going in there and I'm like, because I've known this person since 2016, and all I know is that she has a cat. So I just remember saying, like, can you promise me that one day I will be happy? And she said, I can. And so I said, then I remember telling her that I was willing to be 100% honest with her. And that's like, that's the only way. It's the only way.
I know.
And to like, and that I didn't have to be ashamed of who I was and what I had done, or who I was born to, or what I looked like, or what all those things that you just carry. I just carried these weights. And not to say that I don't still, but they don't drive me as much because, I just got out of I just broke up with somebody who I had a lot of fun with, but that was incapable of functioning. And I just started going like, I don't live like that anymore. And I have this person and their problems, and like, why this is not okay. And I was able to break up with that person and feel okay about it, and those are all things that I've changed. And like having cancer again, and having my brother die and my mom die, like these were like, I get to choose the experiences that I have of sometimes these incredibly painful things, I get to have an experience of not like, they don't take me down, and I don't have to avoid them, like I don't have to avoid things anymore. So,
yeah.
Does that, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that one decision to be like, I'm doing this, I'm like,
yeah,
it was like
this for me.
Right. And just that one time, when I decided to get out of that fucking commune, and when I decided to get sober, I was just like, there has got to be a different way, and I am going to do what it takes. And I did, and I think that one decision and meeting her there and just like going like, I'm going to do this thing. And I'm, I still talk to her every couple of weeks. So I guess I still got a ways to go.
Well, I think if you're doing it right, we're all working on ourselves until the day we die.
There's always going to be decisions.
No one's perfect. No one figures it all out that I've heard. And, gosh, I had a thought, but I got stuck on that one. But while you were talking, I was going to ask you an additional question. It's all right. Maybe it'll come back to me.
It's funny in these situations where, because I speak a lot of meetings not so much lately, but I have the past couple of months. And, when I'm like describing things and, how I apply like the spiritual principles of AA or the steps or, how your life gets bigger, and sometimes I'm just describing stuff and I'm just like, wow, quite a life.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I was going to say. You reminded me. So at one point you were saying, I've never really been successful in my relationships. And I was going to point out, but I didn't want to interrupt you at the time. What is
romantic relationships?
Okay. What is your definition of success? Because in all honesty, have you learned something?
Yes, but I also suffered.
You did.
Yeah. In that one. Yeah. Emotionally. You know. The one thing I learned.
But haven't you gotten better at it?
Yes. But there was
having absolutely
true.
No reference point.
When I start to modify who I am, no matter what, that's one thing I know. That's even if the person isn't outwardly, if I feel like the need to modify myself, I know that that's just a red flag for me to not invest any time in that.
But I would encourage you to have more compassion towards you and your experience.
Well, I'm gonna need you to remind me.
I will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
I will.
Left to my own devices.
Yeah. Because knowing what you've been through and knowing how you were raised and knowing that your father was missing from the picture, the fact that it's taken you a while to figure out what a relationship really looks like and feels like and how you want to be supported and how you want to be protected and finding a man who has the strength for you, I think, give yourself a little more time. Yeah.
That's all I got.
Yep. That's right. That's all we have. That's all we have.
I always am like, time's going by anyways.
Yeah. So what are the last words you want to hear before you die?
God. From myself or from someone else?
Well, from someone else, probably. Unless you're talking to yourself.
Well, I just bought this book by this guy, Stephen Levine.
Oh, yeah.
Called If I Had a Year to Live. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Because I started thinking about, not that I have a year to live, but I got stuck in this rut after my reoccurrence that since it was 7 years before that, I probably have 7 years left. And it's really interesting, but I think that I guess the last things I would want to hear before I die from if I'm surrounded by not just a doctor is like, we had a good life.
We had a good life?
Or like
that the people that love you and care about you, that they're telling you that we had a good life.
Okay, maybe I would say you because of you, I am changed forever. And my friends say that to me now.
Yeah, that's what you were telling me off camera about your upcoming birthday.
Yeah.
Is that they were reminding you that people want to be around you because you change people's lives and their experience of life.
They were like, let the people that love you celebrate you.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh God, I don't know if I can do that, but I can do that. But who knows? We'll see. It's on Saturday, so there's still a couple days in between.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like, hey, you beat cancer and you're 95 and you're dying. You know what I mean? That you like, yeah.
You've done it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've overcome a lot, actually.
I don't know. I guess in my mind, I think like, oh, other people have had it so much worse. Like I shouldn't complain, but that's what you do, right? Because
it's not a comparison. It's your own experience. And no person's trauma is worse or better.
Yeah.
It's what you experienced and how you overcame it that made you you, and makes you so relatable to other people because you've experienced so much, as have I. And so because of that, I'm unflappable.
Well, that's what I love about people too. You know what I mean? This is the last thing I'll say. So there's many pamphlets in AA, and there's this pamphlet called The Member's Eye View of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's a guy who's in AA, and he's speaking to a graduating class of counselors. I mean, this is like in 1968, right? And he's explaining to them his view of what it means to be an alcoholic and his experience in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because everyone's having their own experience. There's not one to have. And that's the beauty of the program, is that the program's the program, and we're all people. And he talks about how he's this one paragraph, and he's like, it is the desire, this is what he's saying, like he thinks it is the desire for one human, like one person, to stand like completely stripped of all the things that they think that make them important, to stand in front of somebody else who is absolutely stripped of all those things, and that to connect and to love that person just because. Like that is the desire, right, of all people, to just be seen, to just be like, yeah. And I hope that that is what I carry with me in life.
That you can inspire other people to be seen and to see them.
Yeah. Or just to like, if somebody I talk to feels that I have reached in there, and saw them and loved them anyways, I feel like that's my goal as a human. That's like my
Purpose.
Divine purpose. Because that one little thing, it's like that German teacher in high school.
What German teacher in high school?
That when I first took German, I had this German teacher that he believed in me, and I got an A in that class, and it was like that one, probably something that was like he did all the time, but to me, he believed in me, you know what I mean? And it's just that one little, like, just that one time, and it's like, that stays in you, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, he may have done it on other occasions, but he did it for you. He didn't do it for the whole class.
Yeah.
So I don't want to minimize that connection, because obviously it was significant and he felt it too.
Yeah. And I thought, yeah.
It was life-changing for you, because at the time...
At the time it was, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because at the time you had a lot going on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So here I go.
So now you're doing it for other people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to do it for myself too, because it's easier to do it for other people than for yourself. And I don't even know what that looks like. So I'm not sure. I that's why I need people in my life, and meeting you too. Like, I feel when we've talked, and are we done? Or can I keep talking? Okay.
You can keep going.
No, but I feel like with you, first of all, I feel like I didn't help you with that application, but I didn't know how, and I was so busy, and I felt like I want to apologize publicly.
Stop.
But like also that you're here, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I feel very exposed when I'm around you. And not like I want to shy away from you, but you're one of those people like me, you know? You like lock on, and not in a bad way, but just like I can't just like flip by, you know? And I feel
Because I see you?
yeah. You know, and so it's I'm interested. I'm definitely want to get to know you better, but also that there is this thing about you that I feel like you have it too.
That I see people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't hide from me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see people very, very clearly, even if they don't see it.
Yeah. And, you know, and now that I have a little bit more downtime because I'm not doing everything, which was fine too. It really like showed me what I'm capable of. But yeah, and I love where I work. I feel like there's a million like opportunities a day to really just be a human.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I like about that place too.
Yeah, I know, it's very caring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, you know, in the grand scheme of things that, you know, like you said, my not challenge, but what to work on too is to practice that
Compassion.
compassion with myself,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's okay. Because once I can have those, like once I'm doing that on a daily basis, like it becomes my norm.
That's right.
Right.
It's
and
just
so
practice.
when I'm not feeling that, I'll be like, oh, this is not how I do it. And I did to a certain degree in the end be like, this is not how I do things. So.
But you just need more practice.
I definitely need more practice.
Well, that's the thing. And I try to remind people, I mean, I remind myself the same thing. But here's the thing. Like, you were doing things one way for a really long time. And I like to compare it to like learning how to ride a bicycle. Like, you didn't learn how to ride a bike the very first day your mom handed you a bike. You probably fell down and you skinned your knee and you banged up your elbow and you cried because you couldn't get it and all of those things. And it took you a while to learn how to ride the bike. Now, if I asked you to ride a bike, you love the freedom of being on a bike.
Mm-hmm.
That whole scary part of like falling down or all of that is kind of in the past. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, when you hop on a bike, you know how to do it. And it's because you've been practicing it so much since you were a kid. So you had all of these years practicing a particular behavior or a particular pattern of belief or a particular way of being, right? Mm-hmm. And now you're trying to unravel and undo that since 2016 or 2010. We'll even go back to that.
Yeah.
But you had 40 plus years before that? 45 mm-hmm. plus years of practicing things a particular way. And so have you given yourself another 45 years to unpractice that or practice new things? And so I find like we're on the other side of that. We are so impatient with our progress, right? And it's like, well, you really haven't had that much time. You're kind of in your infocy of learning new things. Right? New ways of being, taking care of yourself.
When you put it that way, yes.
Choosing new relationships, finding great friendships that are supportive of who you are now and love you for who you are. So that's why I say I'm going to remind you to be more compassionate because, you know, if you were your best friend, back to that third person, right? You would be like, come on, Dolores, you have more time for this. Give yourself some slack. Like, it's okay. It's okay that you don't have it all figured out yet, but you are wiser and stronger than you were in 2000, 2008, 2010, and you keep getting better at being you. Yeah. And that's what you're practicing. You're practicing being you because up until now, you haven't had a chance to really be you.
What's that Oscar Wilde quote? Be yourself, everyone else is taken.
It's so good. I love it.
But I will tell you, I've kept a journal ever since I got sober.
That's what you said, yeah.
It's like, If someone were, I always think, if someone were to find my box of journals
and go back and read,
they'd be like, this poor girl.
You have seen a lot.
I'd be like, where is she? I need to find her and take care of her.
She's with you. You're holding her hand each day. She didn't go anywhere. Yeah. She's still inside. Yeah. But fortunately, a wiser version of you is holding her hand and leading her around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.